Alright everyone, later today I may be getting some new office decor and stuff, so if you hear a little reverb right now, it's been partially cleaned out to make room for, what I'm gonna need room to maneuver. Assemble things, move things in, move things out, I gotta redo all the cords and stuff, it's gonna take pretty much all day. We gotta talk about the Californian political system and how it has this weird tendency to pass laws and try to do things that have to be considered. Any sane person, any rational individual understands that as soon as it's challenged in a court, it's going to get fired down. It's like when California actually tried to go back on legalizing pot. It's like, well, the voters have spoken. You can't unilaterally decide to ignore them because you don't like the result. Doesn't matter if there's federal precedent. Within the state context, you can't do that. That was shot down. Some of their gun control's been shot down. A lot of stuff gets shot down. The Ninth Circuit, liberal as it may be, I don't think will back them on this either. And that's their new law forces corporations, businesses. They have a corporate boardroom. They're incorporated at all. They have to have a female on it. Multiple females, assuming their size by, I think it's 2025 or something. It's like, okay. So the business is required by law to hire certain groups of people solely based on their chromosomal makeup. I don't think that's going to fly in a court. You can call it affirmative action. I've used the example before, and this is why I'm against affirmative action as well. Now, I'm also against, like Silicon Valley companies, when they push one creator over others and do stuff like that. It's unhelpful at the very least, and here's why. Here's the simplified example. Let's say that you have a bunch of different kinds of bread that you sell in your store. Just a totally generic store. It can be like anything. You have however many types of bread that are sold there. Instead of demoting any of those loaves of bread, leave them alone. You're not, talking trash about them. You're not, raising the price to dissuade people from buying them because you don't like the company. Instead, you heavily discount, subsidize one type of bread and have ads up about how wonderful it is. All of the other types of bread suffer anyway, specifically because in a situation where you have that sort of populism, you have multiple units intercompeting, it is innate because there's a certain amount of bread that's going to actually be uptaken, and then people's choices are swayed. The same is true within a work environment. There are a certain number of corporate boardroom slots. The only thing I can think of, this would be very funny. It'd be very funny to see how California would react if a corporation said, okay, we'll have a female in our boardroom. We're reducing the overall power of every member, though, because we're going to hire 5 or 6 other dudes at the same time. Fuck yourself. Now, you might actually see some businesses leave. Here's been a perennial problem. All of these corporations, like the corporate groups like Silicon Valley that are better at branding, they're better at making themselves seem progressive, whatever the fuck that means. They always talk a big game about diversity and inclusion, but if you look at their upper management, it's really not. It's pretty homogenized. There's a reason for that. It has to do with differential fields that people go into. It's like the difference between men and women in STEM or something like that. If you have a group of people who, for voluntary cultural reasons, largely chooses to avoid a type of work, there's a reason why 99% of people who work in the mining industry and 95 or some crazy percent are male within oil rigs. The reason for that is specifically because males have chosen to enter those fields. Females have not chosen to enter those fields. It's not discrimination. There's no, nobody's complaining about too few female coal miners, in other words. But in corporate boardrooms, it's a big problem. All of a sudden, you need to make sure that everything is like a bowl of fucking Skittles. If California, let's take this to its logical conclusion. Let's say that the state of California passed another law saying your corporate boardroom must also have X number of people of non-white ancestry. Or I should say, of certain other so-called colored groups, as the state of California would so term them, which is a hilarious throwback to maybe 50s lingo. It's very, very funny that they use people of color as a term now. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It sounds like it sounds like you're a fucking eugenicist or something, but that's just me. That's just my opinion. I'm supposedly the bigoted one because, I believe in border control or something. I choose to believe that people's differences should be celebrated rather than eliminated. That's apparently bigotry now. I don't understand it. But let's say they were to do that. So your corporate boardroom has to have one or more women, one or more people of various races. It has to have an Aboriginal on it, and it has to have a couple of people who aren't originally from the United States, to take care of that nasty nativism. You get to the point at which a corporate boardroom would necessarily have to expand. They'd have to like triple the size of their boardroom to accommodate all these things. And they would have to do so in some cases because you have so many corporations based in California. There would be stiff competition, I think, for the handful of females who would actually be qualified to be in their boardrooms. You might have some, you have a Silicon Valley tech firm. Some female who spent 20 years in the corporate boardroom that's like, oh, well, that's good on paper, but she was working for a paper company, not for a social media firm. Well, they're qualified to be in a boardroom, generically speaking, but we're going to compete for this other woman that 10 other businesses are also competing for because it's the only female locally that wouldn't have to move 200 miles out of her fucking way in order to get here. They'll have to reach out beyond California to find people, certainly, to fill those roles and expand corporate boardrooms. If you get to a point where it is acceptable for a state to command private entities to stack their corporate boardrooms with people based on gender, then they can also do it based on any other factor, and the number wouldn't matter either. What's the difference between saying a corporate boardroom must have one woman versus 60% of the people in your boardroom must have no Y chromosome? What would be the difference? The answer is that there's no difference. Legally speaking, those two would be very similar situations based on the same basic legal precedent. The problem is this would give states the right to command private entities to do basically whatever they want with regards to their command positions. Or they could say, hey, corporate boardroom has to have a certain amount of men. When are they going to crack down on the Huffington Post having like an all-female corporate boardroom? I believe it is 100% female, and it was very funny when they took that picture there and like, oh, look at the diversity. But they're all white females, 100% of them. Oh, well, I think there was one female there that wasn't white. Okay? That's not diversity. That's called a very female-centric boardroom. If they were all men and someone's like, oh, look at the diversity, here's the one person who's black. Look at the diversity. This one person is elderly. The rest of us are in our 40s and 50s and look like Mitt Romney or something. Here's diversity. That dude over there, he takes Casual Friday to a whole new level, like he smokes pot in the boardroom. I mean, that's not diversity. By the way, I gotta say this, why should a private business care if there's diversity? No, what they should care about is their bottom line. Ideally, if you want as efficient an economy as possible, you want the best qualified people to fit into the positions they are best qualified for. You don't want a nuclear scientist working at Wendy's. Nor do you want a Wendy's worker to have to be put on a corporate boardroom because the state has made affirmative action, has extended it beyond the public sphere and into the entirely private sphere. Now, I understand one aside would be, hey, some of these corporations, they get like tax subsidies, they do like public sort of contracts. Okay, insofar as they're doing that, yeah, you can make stipulations, but you can't command the business in a vacuum simply because it is a corporation to do so. It's illegal. This is unconstitutional. You could make a separate law. You could scrap this and make a law saying if you're taking public contracts, if you're doing work on behalf of the state of California, if you intend to take advantage of certain subsidies that we offer and can make conditional, and it's been legally established that we can, think what you want, it's legally established anyway, that would be legal. That'd be perfectly fine. You can force those businesses to jump through any hoops you want. But if the business is simply a brick-and-mortar corporate entity, like a mid-level shipping company, they have a corporate boardroom, they have like 10 people on it. You're saying they have to have 2 or 3 women on there, even if there's no qualified candidates for that position willing to relocate. Or even if they would have to pay through the nose to cause someone to relocate. They're like, hey, the state of California says we need a female in our boardroom. Oh, well, yeah, okay, pay me $1 million so I can move because, I'm used to the mansion lifestyle. I'm used to the McMansion and the business class seating, so to speak. You're going to have to sweeten the deal. Oh, shit, well, it's going to be a difficult year for our employees. Sorry, we can't give you your raise. We have to hire several women, and there are no qualified females even in this region. We have to get someone all the way from Sacramento to come in, or someone from Taiwan, practically. We had to pay him millions of dollars. The state of California commands it. Or that business will say, hey, maybe we should just move to a lower tax state. Maybe this will be the straw that broke the camel's back. It's already happening. California's tax rates alone are causing a mass exodus of every non-Silicon Valley firm. The rest of California is having big problems. Then you have the constant droughts and other political scandals. You have the hardline partisanship leading to literal violence at times. Yeah, these are all, I'm sure, problems. If I had a business I would leave, I'd certainly go to Texas. I'd be like, I'm taking advantage of your 0% state tax rate, income tax rate. I'm taking advantage of the fact that local firms will work cheaper. The resulting structure will be taxed at a lower level, and you will take less of my employees' income, making it very, very easy to take advantage of the highly educated Austin population, plus the fact that there's surging manpower. Plus great infrastructure. Yeah, sign me up for Texas. As opposed to sitting here in San Francisco where I pay 10 times as much to hire lazy people who expect to be able to get stoned on the fucking job anyway, and then expect hefty pensions because it's San Francisco. Yeah, I think it'd be self-explanatory. If you have the money to leave the state, you probably should. That's about all. Peace out.